Good evening. Just waiting for Rufus. I'm just teasing. I'd like to welcome everyone, members, officers, and members of the public to this meeting of the Planning Control Committee. Before the meeting starts, I will invite the committee member and scrutiny officer to explain how proceedings will work. Robbie.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. If a member wishes to speak, they should use the speak button located on the microphone unit. The microphone will light up green and the chair will be alerted of your request to speak. When the chair invites you to speak, your microphone will be made live and will turn red, at which point you can speak. When the public participants are invited to speak, their microphones will be made live by the committee officer. When requested to vote, voting will be via the yes, no, abstain buttons on your microphone unit. Details of how members voted will be shown on the screens around the room and the result will be visible on the YouTube stream. In the event of a tied vote, the chair will have the casting vote. Are there any questions before we start the meeting? Doesn't look to be, so I will now hand back to the chair.
Thanks, Robbie. Item 1, apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Councillors Bryony May and Councillor Caroline McDonnell. Are there any further apologies? No. Item 2, minutes of the meeting of the 22nd of January 2026. I propose that we take as read and approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of January 2026 as a true record of proceedings. May I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Fellers. Any comments on the minutes? No? Then if we could vote on approving the minutes, please.
That motion is carried, Chair.
Thank you. Item 3, notification of other business. There is none. Item 4, Chair's announcements. 1, recording. In accordance with the council policy, this meeting is being recorded. The recording will be available both on the council's YouTube channel as well as on the council's ModGov site alongside the documents from this meeting. 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under Chair's announcements on the agenda. 3, to clarify matters for the registered speakers. Thank you to members of the public for joining us this evening. To confirm, speakers will each have 5 minutes to make their verbal presentation to the committee. All speakers will receive a warning when you have 1 minute remaining, and I'll do it very gently. Following the conclusion of your time, members will be invited to ask points of clarification to the speakers. At the end of your allotted time, you'll be advised that the time allowed has ended. 4, debate procedure. In order to move to a debate on an item, we will require a proposer and seconder for a motion at the appropriate time in the meeting. This should take into account the information in the officer's report and will follow the officer's presentation and any other public presentations, including members' advocates, as well as any questions of the officer and points of clarification to the public presenters. As a reminder for members, should you wish to propose a motion contrary to the recommendations included in the officer's report, you'll be required to provide clear and evidence reasons for this proposal. 5, section 4.8.23a. For the purposes of clarification, in order to vote on an agenda item in this meeting, a member must be present for the entirety of the debate and consideration for that item. If a member leaves the room at any point of the item, they will not be able to vote. 6, meeting cut-off. As outlined under 4.8.24g of the Council's Constitution, if the meeting proceeds to 10:30 p.m, the item being considered at that time will be the final item considered at tonight's meeting. The remaining business will be deferred to the next meeting on Thursday, the 12th of March, 2026. 5, public participation. I have for item 6, I have Claire Swarbrick. Welcome. Item 7, Claire Newbury. Welcome. Item 8, Kevin McBride, who I think is left and is coming back. Okay. So let's move on. Item 6, application 25-01708 OP, land opposite Heath Farm, Briery Lane, Royston. Ben Glover to present. Ben.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. So yesterday I provided an update, a written update, to summarise the update. It consisted of a revised response from the County Council Growth and Infrastructure team, amending their original consultation response. The updated response made changes to the contribution figures towards some of the items listed within their response. So these changes are set out in my published update. So if you can go to the presentation, please. Thank you. So it's an outline permission is being sought for the erection of up to 84 dwellings with public open space, landscaping and sustainable drainage systems following the demolition of number 24 Echo Hill. All matters are reserved save for access. So excluding number 24 Echo Hill, the application site is situated outside of the Royston settlement boundary and is within the rural area beyond the Greenbelt. The site is to the south side of Royston. To the west of the application site is Fairfield Heath, which is a site of special scientific interest. The site itself and Echo Hill are generally defined by the topography, which is undulating in its nature. The topography of the site is pertinent to the issues raised in the officer reports. So go on to the next slide, please. So this is the development framework plan. It's indicative of the development that could be accommodated on the site. So the access would be to the north of the site through Echo Hill. The residential development blocks are shown to the north and east of the site, and there are large areas of open space to the south and west. Drainage is shown to the northern boundary of the site and on the southeast corner. Go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this plan shows the proposed access to the site through where number 24 Echo Hill currently sits. Issues around suitability and safety of access have been raised by the Highways Authority and its ability to serve all users appropriately. This is addressed within the officer reports. Furthermore, the siting of the access and the traffic that would be associated with the access has raised concerns around harm to neighbouring properties, particularly number 23 and 25 Echo Hill, which are the direct neighbours of number 24. Again, these issues are addressed within the officer reports. So come to the photos, please. Thank you. So this photo is of number 24 Echo Hill and is where the proposed access to the site would be created. Number 23 and 25 Echo Hill are visible to the left and right of number 24 there in the middle. Next photo, please. Thank you. This photo is looking west along Echo Hill with number 24 on the left-hand side of this photo, just visible. Next photo, please. So this photo is taken from the same position, but this time looking east along Echo Hill. You can start to see the kind of the topography of the road as it is. Next photo. So it's taken a bit further along Echo Hill, further down the hill. We're looking at 24 there and 23, 25. This gives a bit of a better sense of the topography of the road which the access would come onto. Next photo, please. So we're now on Briery Lane with the site to the left behind the hedgerow. This photo, again, looking south, gives a sense of the topography of the site. Next photo, please. Similar position, but this time looking north down the hill towards Royston. Yeah, next photo, please. So now we're looking into the sites with existing properties along Echo Hill on the left-hand side, and the field visible there is the westernmost field of the two fields that form the site. Next photo, please. So looking further into the site now, looking south, again at the western parcel. Again, just to give you a sense of the topography of the site. Next photo, please. Similar photo again, just a bit further, looking a bit further in. And next photo, I think that's the last one. Yeah, thank you. So The key issues raised within the officer report and which form the reasons for refusal, they include firstly visual harm by reason of the site's topography and provenance, unsustainable development by reason of the site's location, topography in relation to sustainable transport options, highway safety harm. It cannot be demonstrated that the access would provide us suitable and safe access for all users. Adverse harm to neighbouring amenity by reason of the location of the access and associated traffic movements through that access. Absence of an acceptable flood risk assessment that fails to demonstrate that the development would not give rise to the potential for increased risk of flooding elsewhere. And finally, a lack of an agreed Section 106, which would secure contributions toward infrastructure or on-site affordable housing. So the application is therefore recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ben. Do members have any questions for the planning officer? Ruth.
Just one question. So is the only material change from the application that was refused in 2021 the reduction in number of dwellings from 99 to 84 in your view, or have there been other substantive changes?
They're not identical applications, but as set out in the report, they are very similar. So subtle differences.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Val Bryant. Val.
Thank you. From the other angle, have there been any substantial changes in policy since last applications?
Yep. So we've since adopted the local plan. The previous application was determined on the original, previous local plan. However, we were in the process of adopting the now local plan. And obviously changes to the NPPF updates over several updates since. So yes, there has been changes to policy.
To this application?
Yeah.
Sorry,
So I guess in this case, so the main one is a 5-year housing land supply. In that the council can't demonstrate one. So the tilted balance is engaged in this case, meaning that it weighs in favour of the proposed development. So I'm not explaining it very well. So tilted balance is basically what shifts the planning scales in favour of the granting permission when a local authority can't demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. That's probably the main policy consideration that we have now.
Thank you.
Councillor Tom Tyson. Tom.
Thank you.
Can you hear me when I... Yeah, we always seem to struggle. I think those microphones over there are not as good, or our officers need to be more strident, one or the other.
Perish the thought.
We're a bit shy. So now the shy and retiring Councillor Tom Tyson. Tom, go ahead.
I'll try not to mumble. Ben, thanks for the report. Everything was really clear, except that I just one query about the flood authority's comment about the potential for a flood risk elsewhere. Is it possible just to explain a little bit about how that might occur?
Yeah. So I guess it's obviously up to the local flood authority to assess those plans, those details, and then provide a recommendation. They are the experts in that. And in this case, they have found that the information provided is not sufficient to allay their concerns that there would be the potential for increased flooding elsewhere. So yeah, it's left with, I suppose, the consultee to assess, and we take their advice on board and assess part of the application, which then ties into local planning policy, national planning policy, and the requirements set out therein.
Okay.
Anyone else? Then I have a question. Just going back to the 5-year housing land supply and the tilted balance. Regular attendees of this committee are more than familiar with listening to about the tilted balance. So just to clarify what we're saying in this case, we think that the detriments do significantly outweigh any benefits Just to be absolutely clear on this.
Yes, so the tilted balance is in favour of providing deliverable housing from a starting point, and then as you go through the assessments where harm is identified, it starts to tilt the balance back. And in this case, I think I found that the harm from the proposed developments outweighs the benefits.
Sean, you're indicating. Yeah.
If I could just add, with regards to the tilted balance, the harm that would arise would need to significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits that would arise from the development. Now, the report does identify that there would be benefits that would arise from the delivery of this number of houses in this location in terms of the social benefits of housing at a time where there's obviously an unmet need and other economic benefits that would arise. And the report sets those benefits out. Most applications will have some benefits to weigh against the harm. When you apply the tilted balance, those benefits must be significantly and demonstrably outweighed by the harm, as opposed to, for example, a neutral balance, where you're starting off with an even scale, where you just consider the harms against the benefits and come to an even weighing of those matters. The tilted balance means that the balancing scales have to be significantly tilted by the harms to outweigh the benefits that would arise from delivery of this number of houses. Thank you.
So we're not getting any 52-48 results, because we all know what happens then. Right. Any other questions to the officer? No? In which case, may I call the first public speaker, Claire Swarbrick. Claire, you have 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when you have a minute left, and I'll do it as gently as I can.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and address this meeting. As a resident and chair of Royston Says No to Gladman, we represent over 250 Royston residents and households, all of whom have articulated legitimate objections and concerns regarding this proposed development. I would like to specifically recognise the residents of Echo Hill, and particularly those at number 23 and 25, whose properties would be significantly affected by the proposed access route, as the officer has outlined. The access, as outlined in the previous application, would be constructed following the demolition of property 24 Echo Hill. Echo Hill is a quiet cul-de-sac that has long served as home to these individuals. For several years, they have faced uncertainty and stress due to the prospect of an access road being situated adjacent to their homes, alongside other Royston residents who would be impacted by this development. They are present here today. I would like to thank the planning officer who has been involved in this latest application for their hard work and diligence. We fully support the reasons that they have recommended for refusal. I will touch upon some of these reasons and others in the hope that this will give further weighting to refuse this unsuitable and unsustainable application. The following points explain why. Landscape and visual harm. The site lies in a valuable landscape. Development would significantly harm the area's rural character, impacting public paths, the adjacent Icknield Way, a local nature reserve, and the adjacent nationally important Thurfield Heath SSI. Nearby homes at lower levels would also be negatively affected by much higher urban development. Our landscape consultants' reports confirm development at this site would cause substantial harm, as with past applications, and recommend refusal based on visual and landscape impact. Impact to neighbouring properties. Gladman was recently denied permission for a similar site in Leicestershire, where they proposed demolishing a home to create an access road in an established cul-de-sac, threatening another community with a comparable development. The planning authority for that application, who had to consider the development in the tilted balance, refused on grounds of significant harm and impact to nearby residents. The planning inspectorate upheld the decision of the council at appeal in December 2025. I would like to quote to you the planning inspector's words of this failed application. Development should not be at any cost. Gladman has demonstrated awareness of the potential impacts to Echo Hill by formally contacting the residents of 23 and 25 in 2020. In these written communications, they acknowledged the impacts of the proposed development during both the construction phase and after completion, even offering to buy their homes. Copies of these letters were submitted to the council. Traffic and transport. The access roads around the site, as you've seen from the photographs that the officer shared, are entirely unsuitable, as evidenced by our appointed consultants and residents who have presented substantial proof. They've also provided technical data demonstrating that the site's gradient and access roads would not meet safe access standards. Additionally, Hertfordshire Highways has rejected the application due to poor, unsafe access and the site's unsustainable location. Increase of flood risk from the site. The site fails to conform to flood risk policy as stipulated within the NPPF. We support the lead local flood authority's objections regarding an insufficient flood risk assessment and agree the development of this site would likely cause a significant risk from flooding. Impact to the SSSI of Thurfield Heath. We are concerned of the impact by the development of the SSSI on Thurfield Heath and the failure by Natural England to ensure adequate protection is being appropriately applied. The site's proposed mitigation is not adequate for a site within 60 metres of a SSSI, and the 400-metre rule should apply. The 400-metre rule, which I refer to, is used by Natural England for the special protection areas and is an offset applied to development. Furthermore, a site adjacent to a SSSI which fails to deliver on-site biodiversity net gain should not be accepted by the council. The conservators of Thurfield Heath and Greens have objected to this site, and more weight should be given to their response, given the failings of Natural England. Our ecologists have raised concerns on the surveys undertaken and the harm the development of this site would cause to the neighbouring SSSI. In the words of our consultants, this is the worst site that could be chosen for the impact to the SSSI. We ask the council to consider this as part of the planning decision and ensure greater protection is being afforded to the SSSI in future. So, in conclusion,
go on.
This site was denied on appeal in the 80s. More recently, this site was refused planning permission in both 2018 and 2021. And now, for the fourth time, you are being asked to consider at planning. It's disappointing we're here again. We should not have to discuss this site for a fifth time. We support the recommendation by officers and thank you, and hope that the committee will uphold the officers' recommendation.
Thank you. Do we have any points of clarification, questions from the committee? None at all. Gosh. Right. Don't think we have a further speaker on this one, do we? No, in which case, sure, definitely nothing. Fine. In which case, I shall return to the officer. If you have any further points to make.
No, I've nothing to add. Thank you, Chair.
And do members have any further questions to the planning officer? No, in which case we'll move to a debate. The officer's recommendation is to refuse permission. Unless members are minded to propose a different recommendation on this item, along with the material planning reasons, I shall be proposing that we refuse permission. Martin.
Happy to second and reserve my right.
Okay. I didn't even ask. The man reads my mind. Where did I get to? Therefore, I propose that we refuse planning permission for the reason as set out in the report. Can I have a seconder?
Yes, I'm happy to second and I reserve my right. Thank you.
We're in debate. Councillor Ruth Brown. Ruth.
Thank you, Chair. And I was the chair of the planning committee when this was refused in 2021. It was refused on grounds of visual harm and the impact on the Thurfield Heath. Interestingly, since that time, policies have changed, and actually now highways have objected, flood authorities objected. There are a whole raft more of objections, and I'm delighted that the officer has felt that the harms outweigh the benefit, even with the tilted balance. It is an unsuitable and unsustainable location, and I, like our speaker, I'm sorry that we're here again, but I absolutely think this application should be refused, and hopefully the committee will be unanimous on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yes, flashing on and off, Martin. Would you like to speak, Councillor Prescott?
I'm so keen. I would echo, if you pardon the pun, I would echo Councillor Brown. I'm quite concerned as to the fact that this one keeps coming back and keeps being refused for the same reasons. And despite the tilted balance, we still find ourselves in a situation where we've got a comprehensive officer's report which categorically states why the development site is unsuitable and should be refused, and I wholeheartedly support that view.
Councillor Valbrine. Oh,
Thank you. Thank you. I also have heard this application more than once before, but I still sat down and read the whole thing, and I was particularly concerned about the tilted balance. I went over that and did pluses and minuses, and yes, I agree with the officer's recommendation that it should be refused.
thanks, Val. Councillor Louise Peace. Louise.
So this is the first time that I've seen this application, as I'm a relative newcomer on this committee. And when you look at planning applications, you look for certain things and you look to see what highways think and what the local lead flood authority think. And it's clear from their opinions and from all the reasons that the officer has given that this application should be refused. And I'm only sad really to see that these same issues are coming round and round again. And the amount of time that it takes our officers to write these reports, the amount of time it takes all the consultees to provide their expert advice, and the amount of time that's been spent on this that could probably have been saved by this application not being submitted.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have any further speakers? Okay, in which case we have a proposal. If we could move to that, we have a proposal to refuse the application. So to be clear on this, so we're voting yes to refuse the application. We're all clear on that. So if you wish to refuse the application, we're voting yes. Because we've got that before.
That motion is carried unanimously, Chair.
That must be a first, the planning committee being clapped. We've got a second Royston application up. Are members of the public here for that as well, or shall I pause now to let you leave? I mean, you're welcome to stay, of course, if you like, but there's probably telly on that's better than this. Can we? If we Right, we're off. Item 7, application 224-02656 S73, land east of Garden Walk and north of Newmarket Road, Garden Walk, Royston. Sarah Kasparian to present. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. I have 2 verbal updates for you quickly. Following the publication of the committee report, the Council's finance team has confirmed that VAT should not be added to the amount of money that the developer has agreed to pay. So to confirm, the financial contribution requested, which is an option in paragraph 3.6.5, the amount to be included in the deed of variation would be £6,006, just to confirm that. I also have a correction on the second bullet point of paragraph 1.4. To be clear, the date that the open space scheme programme and management plan were agreed should read the 7th of December 2018, not 2028. Sorry. been done in the future. It's clever. Cool, on to my presentation. Thank you. Thank you. So this is the site of Meridian Gate. It was given outline planning permission in 2016 for up to 330 homes. The site has been split into 3 phases, and this Section 73 application relates to phase 1, and in particular the changes to the designated area known as the community open space. And this is roughly triangular in area in shape at the southernmost end of the site shown on this plan. Next slide, please. This is shown an aerial view shown with my scribbles, my red line, indicating roughly where the community open space is. This aerial photo was taken by Google sometime last year, so it's fairly up to date. And you can see that the developer has started to build much of the site, and so they're due to complete the site shortly. Next slide, please. This photo is taken from within Meridian Gate development last summer, and you can see a glimpse through between the buildings of the community open space, between the houses in the distance. You can see the degree of the gradient there, and what that is at the moment with the trees at the top of the hill, which are unchanged. There are 2 key planning issues for this planning application relating to the impact on landscape and ecology, both of which are addressed in my report. Next slide, please. This is a view at the bottom of the hill along the road that runs alongside the open space. You can see the steeper section at the bottom here, which was already agreed through previous other applications and details. This application relates to the levels at the top of that steep section of hill. Next slide, please. And this is looking in the from a similar position, but looking northwards. It's worth noting that the first part of the bottom of the hill here is also unchanged from the details that have already been approved, which will include, when it's finished, the provision for stairs and level paths for people to access the main part of the open space. Next slide, please. This is a view taken from the top of the hill next to the wooded area. It's looking down the line of the power lines. You can see the levels are increased either side of the lines to respect the easements. The levels of the chalk here on the right are not currently as per the proposed plans, but will need to be once the weather allows for such earthworks to take place and before the land is transferred to the council for long-term management and maintenance as agreed in the outline planning application. Next slide, please. This is the levels plan for the site, and the colours indicate the amount of additional earth that has been deposited. You can see 3 mounds have been created, taking earth that has been cut from elsewhere on the Meridian Gate site. The mounds are due to the existing power lines that cut across the open space. So in terms of the colours, the orange represents 0.5 metre increase, and going up to blue, which represents up to 5 metre increase in height on the original levels. Next slide, please. So this is a section reference JJ, which I thought was a typical section. Didn't want to show you all of them, but it goes through one of the blue areas, so you can appreciate maybe the increase in height where it would be the highest. The dotted line here, if you can see it, shows the original level, and the orange line shows the proposed new level when it's finished. Next slide, please. And this is the last slide showing the landscaping concept for the open space, which is to be restored chalk grasslands, which will complement the typical natural environment, such as that at Thurfield Heath. In the outline application, we agreed with the developer that the council would adopt the land, and the council would also do the work to restore the land and then maintain it in the long term. Green Spaces team here have obtained a new quote for the work, taking into account the change of the levels, and the developer has agreed to pay a further contribution for that restoration work. So by reason of lack of harm and the agreement of the developer to pay an additional financial contribution towards the restoration of the land, I'm recommending approval of the application as set out in my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there any questions for the planning officer? Louise, Councillor Peace.
Can I just check what you said about 3.6.5? You said it should be £6,006 if VAT is not included. But the report says an additional 21,928. Well, that's a different.
Yes.
Isn't that,
so
that's not 6,000 times 1.2, is it?
No. So the developer has already paid about £73,000 towards the restoration of the chalk grasslands. It's already been paid. It was in the original Section 106, and they've paid it. So we're holding that money ready for when we adopt the land. The Green Spaces got another quote to take into account the steep levels that they'll have to deal with to restore the land. That came to about 80,000 plus VAT. It would have been 95,000. So I calculated the difference between 73 and £95,000. That's the 21. But we can't charge or ask the developer to pay the VAT because the council will claim it back from the government at some point. So we will charge them for the 6,600. We'll pay our contractor, and then the VAT will sort itself out later on. That's not my bit. But yeah, so we don't. Whenever you get a quote, generally you wouldn't include VAT on those contributions. So sorry for the confusion. It was a last minute question on the committee report.
Go on.
So the ground is higher and we're going to adopt it. Is there any risk associated with it being higher? So I'm thinking in terms, we've got climate change. If we had a once in a lifetime event and there was, God forbid, some sort of slippage on that ground, who bears the risk in that case?
I'll do my best to answer. We've consulted the LLFA. They have no objection to the increase of levels. I asked the developer to provide a ground stability report, which they've done, and seems like they've gone above and beyond what they should have done according to their regulations. The Highway Authority have no objection. There's a road that runs alongside the bottom of it. The steep part at the bottom is not part of this change, this Section 73 change. The increase in the soil is in the middle on the top, and it's distributed reasonably evenly. I know there is a difference between 0.5 and 5 metres spread across, but I think it looks like it's distributed evenly. So I think we've done all we can to understand what impact there might be in terms of flooding, highways, ground stability. So I suppose there will be a kind of legal process in adopting the land, and the estates team will go through their due diligence on it as well. I don't know if Sean wants to add anything to any.
The only thing I'd like to add is that it saved how many thousand lorry movements? 6,500, I think, lorry movements it saved. And that's of benefit to the environment. All those lorries going through Royston and or the vicinities of Royston and all the carbon emissions from those lorries, it saved that. But that's the only thing I would add in terms of one of the benefits of accepting this proposal. If we don't accept this proposal, the material would have to be removed and it would generate about 6,500 lorry movements to do so.
Councillor Brown.
So obviously I know this site very, very well. That top corner was in the original application was left as open space because it is the highest part. And I remember we did actually send it back at one point because to lower the levels on the highest parts of the ground that were further down. I presume this material has come from where the care home's been built because the care home's built into the hill. Very cleverly designed, actually, with gardens on every very nice care home. I presume, therefore, it's chalk the same as the rest of it. One thing, and I think you may have just answered it, when you put that line up, it looked like the first bit's very steep and then it flattens off. I wonder, I mean, it's the steepness going up that I was concerned about, because if we're going to actually use this open space, it needs to be accessible. And I would have thought it'd be better if it was rounded. I mean, it's a popular dog walking space and you can actually see the heath from the top of there. In fact, the young people used to refer to it as the view in back in the day. But so I was just wondering if you seem to have said they're doing everything they can to make it as rounded as possible, but can you just put back that slide with the red line and the green line? Because it looked to me like there was quite a steep bit at the start and I wondered if there was anything that could be done about that to make it a bit more rounded and less steep going up onto the hill. Do you see what I mean?
Can I be cheeky and get my question at the same time?
Yes.
It's on the same thing, so I might as well give Sarah. Although I'm going to be slightly contradictory, I'm afraid. So my question was going to be, and I appreciate the steeper bits at the bottom. Have we lost a flat area at any point? As someone who raised two keen footballers, areas of green space where one could kick a football around or anything else are always a premium. And I just was concerned when I was reading the papers that we might have lost a recreational area.
Yes.
Because unfortunately, because it become too rounded, which is why I'm slightly contradictory to Councillor Brown. Looking at that, it would seem to suggest not. It's the slopes that are changed rather than in which case I'm not in disagreement with Ruth. So sorry, two questions. It's very slightly contradictory.
It was never flat.
So it will never have been flat. So it probably was a bit of a smoother slope before. So it's a bit more molded now, I suppose, with the deposit of material. The very steep bit at the very bottom is not part of this application. It was always designed to be like that, to accommodate the road and the layout and the number of units. The care home may well have created a bit more because there's a retaining wall around that area, but it is chalk. So the quality of the land, it was previously chalk, underlain with chalk, and that's why chalk grasslands were proposed to be on this space. So the quality of the material is that will actually be secured through the landscape and ecological management plan, which is part of my recommendation that we agree that before we issue the decision. So that will secure the quality of the earth that is on there, and so the green spaces are happy with what they inherit. My other point I wanted to say was that in terms of access, it was always supposed to be chalk grasslands. It was supposed to be a community open space, but with the aim of it complementing Thurfield Heath in a kind of natural environment way, rather than a formal recreational space. So it's more of benefit to ecology rather than recreation and public access. So part of the wider plan at Meridian Gate was to have a perimeter footpath around the whole site. And there still is. You can still walk around the perimeter. There's Harris fencing up at the moment, but you'll still be able to walk around it in the future. There will be stairs and a level footpath that goes up this very steep bit, and so you will be able to access it. But the idea is that you're not supposed to play football on there and have large gatherings, I suppose, because it is a more of an ecological haven rather than a formal recreation space. I hope that's answered everything that's been raised.
Can I come back?
Councillor Brown, you have another.
Yes, thank you. That's extremely helpful. Just to clarify, the red line is the new line, and the green line is the existing line.
Yes, the green on.
So
my
the red
screen
line is slightly sharper. Going up.
So that goes through the blue part of that levels plan that was on the screen before. So I wanted to show where it would be most dramatic. So it is steep. It was already steep.
And it's
a bit
steeper now. I just wondered if that earth could be moved a bit further up, so it's less, because it's already very steep at the bottom. And I grant you, it was never flat; it was always steep. And then the other question I had, you just talked about the footpaths, but there's something about additional footpaths through the Newmarket Recreation Ground? Is that part of this, or was that part of the existing plan?
Through Newmarket Road
the recreation ground that's immediately adjacent to the site.
Not part of this application.
But there is. I thought there was an additional footpath, because it talks about access onto the Newmarket Road. I thought it said that.
So that there's two things. There's another obligation in the original outline to do with a footpath going through the recreation ground, which we've received money towards. The other element onto Newmarket Road is that there's a gated access, which is, I think it's within the control of the Highway Authority, and our green spaces team will use that for access with their tractors or whatever to maintain the green space, because that gate leads onto the track that goes around the perimeter.
Yes, I know it well. Yes, I'm aware of that.
Okay. So they
Okay.
will use that for the access to maintain.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Bryant, Val.
Thank you. Can I ask about 3.6.4, which looks at the amount of time the land will be maintained, which is estimated 15 to 20 years. Is that just a standard amount? Because it doesn't seem to be a very long time. Is it just left to its own devices then, or is it settled? Is it bedded in?
So this outline application was granted in 2016, which was before our developer contributions SBD, and that defines long term as a minimum of 20 years. So I don't know, obviously it was a long time ago, previous case officers and all the rest, but that I don't know how they calculated that. That would have been based on presumably a quote for an annual cut or two of the green space, and then scaled up. So Green Spaces have reassessed that. They've taken the opportunity to reassess how much money is needed to maintain it regularly, annually, for however long. And if I put, what did I say, 15 to 20 years? Yeah, 15 to 20 years. So if they did 2 cuts a year, the money that we've already received would last for 15 years. If they did 1 cut a year, it would last more like 20 or more years. So they think they've got enough money to maintain it in the long term. And beyond long term, they would use council tax receipts and fit it into their normal routine of maintaining green spaces.
Oh, thank you.
Cool.
Okay. Tom.
Yeah, just one question. In some of the visualizations in the accompanying associated documents, there's some pictures with timber retaining wall. Is that part of this application, or is that already accepted?
That was already agreed in a previous non-material amendment application, and is associated with the care home, I think. That I think it's set out in my planning history section of what was done when. But yes, it's separate to this application. It's actually not too bad. Once you go and have a look, it's not as dramatic as I think the
It does
visualization.
look a bit like a prison wall in the.
Yeah, I don't think
visualization.
it'll be as bad as we think it will be once it's finished. I was pleasantly surprised when I made a site visit, actually,
Oh, I'll take your word.
with its impact.
Thank you.
Councillor Tyson's probably broken the heart of some architect somewhere with that comment. No further questions to the officer. I would like to invite the applicant's agent, Claire Newbury, to speak. Claire, you have 5 minutes, and I'll let you know you have a minute left.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you to the case officer for a thorough report and answering all those questions so well. Sarah's briefed you well on this, but the application before you this evening is a culmination of work by Vistry over the last 7 years to deliver 340 new homes, including 103 affordable, and the care home. Vistry are looking to complete the delivery of this site by the middle of this year. Phase 3 is the final phase of the development, involving the more complex ground remodelling to deliver the acceptable gradients and platforms within this phase of the development. And it is through the ground remodelling that this additional chalk has been placed on the community open space to avoid disruptive carting off-site, as Mr. Greaves mentioned. This open space was envisaged as part of the original application to be located above the 80-metre contour line. Visually, it was considered that built development above this level should be restricted to mitigate impact on the wider landscape. This area also forms part of the circular walk around the whole site perimeter, providing leisure and dog walking opportunities, and the formation of the chalk grassland on the slope delivers local habitat for biodiversity. As Sarah's already explained, the gradient of the open space has already been partially amended through a previous NMA, which was approved in tandem with the Phase 3 reserve matters. The gradient at the interface with the nearest homes is therefore remains unchanged from that application. And the ground level at the highest point of the slope also remains unchanged from the pre-development levels. Detailed sections of the slope area have been submitted as part of the application. One of those sections was shown on the screen earlier, to show how the profile of the slope will alter, and it varies across that slope area. The proposals have also introduced an additional level walkway along the base of the slope, which links at either end with the wider circular walking route to improve accessibility. It's not suitable for football, unfortunately. It never was, but there is obviously the recreation ground next door, which is level, and we have provided additional pedestrian access to that through the wider application. The additional information was submitted during the course of the application, and this included additional ecology, landscape impacts and management, and a ground stabilisation report as referred. This information has demonstrated that the work has not resulted in any harm to existing ecology, that there are no long-term discernible visual changes to the landscape, and that a stable slope structure capable of being maintained by the council contractors in the long term will be provided. It is acknowledged that this space was originally intended to be handed over to the council earlier in the process. However, designing the right interface between the housing and this space has taken time to get right and required continued input from Vistry design team up to this point. It was also agreed with officers that public access to the area was probably not preferable whilst it continued to be a live construction site. In all other aspects, Vistry has complied with the requirements imposed by the conditions and the Section 106 obligations, and all planning contributions have been paid. Vistry has also been engaging with the local ward councillor in order to address various queries raised by local residents, and we are pleased that this application has raised no objections from local residents. Through engagement with your Green Spaces team, Vistry has agreed with a strategy for the landscape management and maintenance of the space, which will conclude the handover of the land to the council in the near future. Overall, Vistry is really pleased with the outcome of this scheme, and we hope members are too, as it delivers a valuable contribution to the district's housing stock, and customer satisfaction responses from new homeowners have been very positive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any points of clarification from members for Claire? No? In which case, can I invite the officer to respond to any issues raised? Sarah?
I don't have anything to come back on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we will move to debate. Do members have any further questions of the planning officer? Fine. The officer's recommendation is to grant permission unless members are minded to propose a different recommendation on this item. This is a phrase. Along with material planning reasons, I should be proposing that we grant permission. Therefore, I propose that we grant planning permission subject to A, the completion of a satisfactory deed of variation to the original Section 106 agreement or similar legal mechanism to ensure delivery of the agreed heads of terms. B, the applicant agreeing to extend the statutory period in order to complete the deed if required. C, delegation to the Development and Conservation Manager to update conditions and informatives with minor amendments as required. And D, the conditions relating to planning permission 2102-194 S73 as set out in the report. May I have a seconder? Councillor Brown.
Happy to second, reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. We're open to debate. Councillor Billing.
Yeah, I'm just happy to support a green space for a change.
The debate. In which case we'll move to a vote. In this case, we're voting yes if we wish to approve the application.
That motion is carried unanimously, Chair.
Thank you, Robbie. Okay. So we move to item 8, application 25-02298 FP, land between Shangri-La, put my teeth back in, Shangri-La even, and Todd's Corner, Stevenage Road, Todd's Green. Alex Howard to present. Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Just one verbal update for you this evening, and that is to say that at 3.1 of my report, the comment received from Todd's Corner is an objection, as summarised in this part of the report, and it is not a neutral comment like the other two from 4 Adstone Road and 12 Guilders, as this isn't too clear from my report. So that's the only one for you. So if we can go to the slides, please. Thank you. So the application site is an undeveloped site previously used as a paddock land located on the west side of Stevenage Road in Todd's Green. The site lies between 2 residential properties, Todd's Corner to the north and Shangri-La to the south. Opposite the site to the east are several other residential properties, including Thatched Cottage, a Grade 2 listed building. A shed and small stable are situated to the rear of the site. The eastern boundary of the site is demarked by the existing field access, a post and rail fence, and a small number of modest shrubs. The southern and northern boundaries of the site are defined by hedgerows. Todd's Green lies partly within North Herts and partly within Stevenage Borough. The site, together with other properties located to the west side of Stevenage Road, lie within North Herts. Todd's Corner is a hamlet and does not have a defined settlement boundary. Therefore, the site is within the green belt. Next slide, please. So this is just a screenshot from Google Maps to show the site in context with the associated highway network, existing built form, developed areas, which include residential and commercial. Next slide, please. This is a photo from Stevenage Road looking west towards the front of the site with the existing field gate access and the fencing on that frontage. Next slide, please. From the same position, looking towards the neighbour to the south of the site, which is Shangri-La. Next slide, please. And from the same position, looking towards the neighbour to the north, which is Todd's Corner. Next slide, please. Another photo, sort of further south on Stevenage Road, looking towards the site, showing that boundary fence and the shrubs. Next slide, please. So this is a photo from the field gate looking into the site. On the right there, you can see the detached garage at Todd's Corner. This is where the proposed internal access road will be located, proposed to be located adjacent to the northern boundary with Todd's Corner. Next slide, please. And this is a photo from a similar position, again, looking into the site. You can see Shangri-La on the left there and the southern boundary of the site in between. Next slide, please. This is another photo of that southern boundary. You can see the chimney of Shangri-La in the background beyond that hedge there. Next slide, please. This is a photo from within the site looking east towards Stevenage Road with the residential properties on the opposite side of the highway visible there. Next slide, please. And this is taken from within the site looking west, so sort of towards the wider extent of the existing paddock. Next slide, please. And this is a photo taken from within the site looking east towards Stevenage Road. And if you look to the right there, you can see the thatch of the Grade 2 listed thatch cottage. Next slide, please. So this is the site location plan. This demarks the area of the site and the access portions considered under this application. The area to the west, edged in blue, does not form part of this application, but it is within the applicant's ownership. Next slide, please. This is the existing block plan. And next slide, please. This is the proposed block plan. So the application proposes the erection of 4 detached dwellings comprising 2 dwellings on the front part of the site facing Stevenage Road, which are plots 1 and 2, between Todd's Corner and Shangri-La, with 2 dwellings, plots 3 and 4, located to the rear part of the site. Plots 1 and 2 would be situated on a relatively consistent building line with the existing properties fronting Stevenage Road and have been designed in order to have a character and scale in keeping with the mock Tudor Edwardian nature of properties in Todd's Green. Plots 3 and 4 would be situated to the rear and have been designed to have similar architectural style to those at the front, albeit they would have a scale sort of between 1.5 storey instead. The proposed dwellings would be served by the existing vehicular access, which is to be widened to meet modern standards, leading to an internal access road with parking provided for at least 3 cars for each dwelling. A gated access route would be retained to the paddock land to the rear, and this would be situated between the 2 rear dwellings. Next slide, please. So this is the proposed plans and elevations for plot 1. Next slide, please. And this is the proposed plans and elevations for plot 2. So they're effectively mirrored. Next slide, please. This is the proposed plans and elevations for plots 3 and 4. Next slide, please. And these are some indicative proposed street scene elevations for all 4 plots. Next slide, please. This is the proposed landscape mitigation plan. Shows existing and new hard and soft landscaping across the site. Next slide, please. This is the proposed site access plan off Stevenage Road. Next slide, please. This is the proposed swept path analysis plan, which has been done using a 12.2 metre refuse vehicle, just for reference. Next slide, please. And finally, this is it's called an urban layout plan, and it's to show the extent of existing built form in context of the proposed development, which is sort of centre middle leftish. It's outlined in red, but you can't really see it on that plan. Apologies. That is the end of my presentation, Chair. Happy to answer any questions from members. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Councillor Dave Stanley. Dave.
Thanks very much for that. The last time we heard an application for this site, quite a lot was made of the fact that the development was infilling because it continued the linear form of the village. Because that previous application was just 2 homes on the front. As this is now 4 homes with 2 behind, it quite, I mean, in my view, it deviates from the existing built form of the village. There aren't many other areas where there is a sort of a development with houses behind, other than, it's a linear village, basically. Does this therefore still meet the definition of infilling?
So I wasn't the previous officer, but I've read the report, obviously preparing mine. I did read that report, and it does say that that scheme was considered to be infilling development in the Greenbelt, but in the NPPF that only counts if it's a village, and Todd's Green isn't technically a village under policy SP2 of our local plan. So what I have done is, in my report, is I've appraised the site against the Greybelt part of the NPPF instead of the infilling part, because, as you quite rightly say, even if it was a village, you couldn't necessarily call that infill because there's development in depth now. So that's the kind of principal argument that I've put forward, and I have in the report acknowledged that there is a certain impact on the character of the landscape in the area as a result of development in depth, but have concluded, as I have, again, with the tilted balance that we've heard a little bit tonight already, that against that tilted balance, the delivery of housing outweighs that harm.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so the Greybelt element is coming into play.
Yes.
Rather than
in principle, yes, the Greybelt argument is the in principle support for the residential development of this site, rather than the infill, because, as you quite rightly point out, it couldn't necessarily be infill because there's development in depth.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying.
Councillor Brown, Ruth.
Thank you. So I remember being on the committee before. When was it? Do you know the date? And was it before the changes, the introduction of Greybelt? Because you're saying it was assessed against green, so it was before that. Okay, so I suppose my main question is, what are the material changes since last time? So we've got 2 extra dwellings. What is the size comparison? Are the 2 at the front still the same as the ones that were previously proposed, or are they a different size, shape, design? And I can't find anywhere in the report, there's somewhere where it says 2 5-bed dwellings, but it doesn't say exactly how many, the size of all the dwellings, which I'd quite like to know. Is the access the same? So that's enough questions to be going on with. And then I take a bit of issue with the Greybelt thing, but maybe I'll leave that for the debate.
Yes. So I do summarise the changes to plots 1 and 2 in my report.
Oh, sorry. Have I missed it?
There's not much to it. Effectively, the main difference is that I think they're set back slightly more, and there's no longer the gap between the 2. So they were kind of more separated.
Right.
The gap through to the remaining field, which was not going to have dwellings proposed.
But they're similar size.
They are largely similar in terms of scale and form, quite high quality design in my view. And if I remember rightly, the access
is the same.
Existing field gate. I'm just going to double check that. I've just managed to pull up the last scheme, and I can't remember if they were going to move the access to the middle. No, they weren't. No. So the existing field gate access was still going to be used, and that was going to lead into plot 1 and then lead to plot 2. Now plot 1 has been shifted south, and instead there is a access road leading to the rear 2 plots. That's the main.
So that has changed.
That has changed, correct? Yes.
And it was 4th of September, I'm being told, that we. Yeah.
That would be about, that looks right. The decision notice was from the 5th, so it would have put it.
So this application has been assessed completely differently from the last one, based on the changes to the.
No, so the Greybelt provisions were still in play in September last year. They go back to December 24. The report does actually also, as well as the infilling in villages element, the previous report from Tom Ray does also appraise it against Greybelt and come to the same in principle support, albeit for the 2 dwellings on the front. So it's consistent in that respect. I've just not appraised it against the infilling element because I didn't feel like it was substantiated in my view for this scheme.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going back to the 2 dwellings that's got permission already as well. If I remember rightly, for that one, the BNG was positive. This one we've got minus 32%, and I don't understand if all the trees around the perimeter are being retained, and I saw planting on those images, how we've managed to get to a negative 32% BNG.
So forgive me, I think what happened on the previous scheme was that BNG was going to be delivered on the rear part of the site where we now have 2 dwellings proposed. So it was going to be BNG on site. Obviously, as a result of this proposal, that won't be the case, but the scheme of 4 dwellings is still subject to the mandatory BNG condition, as confirmed by our ecologist. So effectively, whether it's on site or off site, the developer will still have to, or the applicant will still have to deliver that 10% BNG somewhere, and that's controlled by the condition as it would have been for the previous one too. It's just off-site credits rather than on-site.
Okay.
Councillor Stanley, Dave.
Thanks. Kind of along those lines. Last time there was the track that went between the 2 homes, and it led to the BNG area at the back, which is now gone from this new plan and is taken up by the 2 further homes. We were told last time that a purpose of that track, as well as to access the BNG area for maintenance of that BNG area, part of, I believe actually the wording was the main purpose was to retain views of the scenery behind. Now the layout does away with that. The new layout does away with that. You won't be able to see because of the access track and the homes behind, you won't be able to see the scenery behind. Has the harm associated with that been weighed into this application? Or the report, rather?
It has. So we did give this quite a lot of thought. And in terms of the harms with this development, that is the primary one. If I could direct you to my conclusion / planning balance 4.3.57, there would be moderate harm to the character and appearance of the area compared to the fallback position, which is the 2 dwellings that were approved in September, due to the loss of space between dwellings that allow views from the highway through to the open countryside to the rear, and moderate weight is given to this harm as development in depth does exist within Todd's Green. So that's acknowledged as a harm, and against the tilted balance, because we haven't got a 5-year supply, we're in that where the harm has to significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. And there are benefits with these 2 additional dwellings, because obviously the previous 2 won't get built if this one gets planning permission. So we have net of 4, and other social, economic and environmental benefits with the scheme. So that's how I've come to the recommendation that I have for you this evening.
Thank you for that. Can I sorry, just to lead on from that. So under the new scheme, there is a further access, another access track. Last time we talked about possibly putting conditions to discourage it with regard to further building behind. Now, this access track that's in this application doesn't lead to a BNG area. It leads to part of the site which is owned by the neighbour of the site. Can he not access that through his own garden? And if he can't, can we put some kind of condition on this track that we're not here in X number of months looking at another application?
I'll let Mr. Greaves.
Do you want a quick answer? No, the answer is no. We can't really impose conditions that seek to restrict something that would require planning permission in the future. As with the last application, I advise you we shouldn't impose such a condition. There's nothing to prevent the applicant from submitting a further application in the future for development of that blue land that was shown on there, and we would consider that application at that time. What we can't do is prejudge or preempt any future applications that may come forward. So it is very much a possibility that the applicant may submit a further application to develop further land to the back, and we will consider it then. So we would not be, it would not be appropriate, it would not be reasonable or necessary to impose a condition. I recall you suggesting, Councillor Stanley, a condition last time. I think it was yourself. And even if we had, that wouldn't apply to this scheme because a condition only bites when you commence the development, and that development for 2 dwellings hasn't commenced. So any such condition, if it had been imposed, would not bite in any event because they've not commenced the development. So the short answer was no. I gave a longer answer after that, I'm afraid. But the answer is no. It will not be appropriate to impose a condition. What would be appropriate is if the applicant came forward in the future with a scheme for more dwellings, we would consider that on its merits. And if the tilted balance applies, then we'd apply the tilted balance and come to a recommendation on the merits of that scheme if they were to come forward. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Before I bring Councillor Bryant in, I had a question. It sort of relates to that. I'm going back a step, I guess. I am curious, and it may well be during the applicant's agent's contribution this is answered, has any clarification been given as to why the applicant chose to go for 2 houses and then another 2 houses? It starts to, am I the only one who feels it feels like Monopoly? But I won't make any jokes about where the hotel goes next. But I just wonder if any reason has been given as to why it is a curious way of doing it.
I'm unaware of a reason, but any reason wouldn't be a material planning consideration, unfortunately. So they are at liberty to submit schemes they submit, and we have to consider them on their merits.
And I'm mindful of what Mr. Groove said, and we've discussed previously. We can't bring speculation to what might happen unless it's not a material consideration. But nevertheless,
right,
it's a
yeah.
curious way of doing business. Councillor Bryant.
A totally open mind. Could I ask if we could see the plan again, which shows the 4 houses and the road? Can we do that? Okay. At the end of the road nearest to Sean's head. Yes. Is there any way that we can actually have some condition whereby they've got some trees there that in fact the trees go all the way along, some sort of so that we're actually increasing the biodiversity, but also not just having a road that ends in nothing.
So
You see what I'm getting at?
to be clear, my understanding is that it isn't a road leading to nothing. It's a road allowing access to the remaining paddock under the ownership of either the applicant or somebody else who, I guess, may still have horses and want to put.
Oh, I
them there.
see.
So the whole site,
the access that would have been on the road is now
the whole site is
now
paddock.
there.
I guess.
By Sean's
I
head.
guess the plan is to cut it in
Got it.
half and keep paddock land that way, and then have residential development on the front. So it wouldn't be
Thank you. I've got it.
possible to do that. No.
Councillor Prescott. Martin.
Am I not right in saying this is sometimes referred to as the frog in a saucepan gambit, so that we get 2, which we approve, and then we get another 2, which we have to approve because there's already a 2 fallback position, and then in another 6 months' time we'll get another 2 on the next bit of land where the road is already there. And I entirely accept we have to look at each one of these applications on their merit, but it does kind of feel like we're having our legs pulled here. I don't think it's reasons to refuse, and I make that abundantly clear, but I do feel that somebody is gaming the system here, and it feels a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I don't.
Not something I could.
I think that's a rhetorical contribution.
Yeah,
I
I don't think I can
really.
really.
I don't think Councillor Prescott expects an answer, and I'm not going to push. Do we have any further questions at this stage from the committee? Bear in mind, we will have debate later. No, in which case, may I call the applicant's agent, Kevin McBride? Oh, sorry. My apologies. I'm sorry, Kevin. Just sorry. If I can, we actually had the member who called the application in, Councillor Caroline McDonnell, she called in the application, but was unable to attend tonight to present the call in. However, she's prepared a written statement that I will read on her behalf as allowed under the Planning Control Committee speaking system. So I'm going to read the statement, but this is Claire, not Caroline speaking and not me. And I won't put the accent on, but just to make it clear. Right. Dear committee members, I'm sorry I'm unable to present this to you in person this evening, and I thank Nigel for taking the time to read my statement. I'm asking you to refuse this application based on the negative impact it has on the very nature of this rural hamlet. Although you are here to determine its application on its own merits, I would like to remind members that several councillors raised concerns, namely regarding the gap between the houses at the meeting in September when permission for 2 properties on this land was granted. Wymondley Parish Council objected then to, and it's important to remember that this land was the last remaining open space in Todd's Green, providing views of the countryside. Biodiversity net gain was achieved by installing a hedge behind the 2 properties. The gap was said to be access for maintenance. This area of biodiversity has been removed now and not replaced. As confirmed by the applicant's agent, this gap would not be used as access to further developments behind, as it was not wide enough. In this new application, provision has been made for refuge and emergency vehicles, resulting in further loss of greenbelt land. The 2 houses given permission in September 2025, while not supported by the local community or the parish council, are at least in keeping with the built form of the hamlet. This application introduces double stacking, further disrupting openness and views and impinge on the countryside. The harm also extends to the immediate neighbour and the impact on his residential amenity. Todd's Green is a hamlet, and it is disingenuous to categorise it as a village for the purposes of this application. We should be mindful of the harm this type of development has on the greenbelt, which in this case has a significant role to play in the prevention of urban sprawl as sites such as Spurbury and Stevenage West come online. I therefore feel it is in direct contradiction to the NPPF and is contrary to the NHDC local plan and the Wymondley neighbourhood plan. We are aware of the absence of a 5-year housing land supply in North Herts, but 2 more 5-bedroom homes are not the answer to the housing shortage. Sorry, there's more. To summarise, the land is greenbelt, and there are no very special circumstances demonstrated to allow for development. The addition of 2 extra houses further impacts on the openness and views from the hamlet, and the built form is not in keeping with the linear layout of the hamlet. I would urge members to refuse his application and use the fallback position. So that was Councillor Caroline McDonnell. We can't ask her any questions, so I will move on now to the applicant's agent. Kevin McBride. Kevin, you've got 5 minutes. I'll let you know you have a minute left.
Lovely. Dear members, my name's Kevin McBride. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to address you this evening. I'm speaking today in support of the application concerning the construction of 4 new homes in Todd's Green. This is an important opportunity to deliver much needed homes in a sustainable, sensitive and well-designed way, complementing the rural setting of Todd's Green while meeting the local housing need. We fully recognise the importance of protecting our greenbelt and the principles that underpin it. However, we also believe that this proposal represents a carefully considered, proportionate and sustainable development that respects both policy and local need. Firstly, the location. This is not an isolated site in open countryside. The land in question is directly between 2 existing dwellings, creating a natural and logical grey belt opportunity. We are in total agreement with the planning officer's conclusion that the site meets the definition of grey belt, and the proposal would therefore be compliant with paragraph 155 of the framework, insofar that the council were unable to demonstrate a 5-year housing supply and the site is in a sustainable location. Accordingly, the proposed development would be appropriate within the green belt on this basis. Planning permission has previously been granted on this site for 2 detached dwellings. The provision of the 2 extra homes will use the maximum amount of land allowable under minor planning applications. A minor application allows for the construction of up to 9 homes, but we have used a maximum amount of land for only 4 homes. This is to ensure that the proposed dwellings would integrate with the surrounding character within Todd's Green. This has been highlighted further in the urban layout drawing submitted with the planning application. The houses have been carefully designed to match the Edwardian character of the existing dwellings in the immediate vicinity. The 2 proposed houses at the front of the site are exactly the same size as those previously approved. The only difference is that they are closer together, thus allowing an access road to be sited adjacent to the neighbouring house at Todd's Corner. This was designed this way due to the previous comments noted that the owners of due to the previous comments noted from the owners of Todd's Corner to our approved scheme for the 2 dwellings. They had requested that the access should be adjacent to their boundary to then allow further gap from their boundary to the proposed new dwelling, something we were happy to comply with. As members will be aware, North Hertfordshire continues to face significant pressure for new housing. Delivering small-scale, well-located homes as these is part of meeting that challenge in a responsible way, whilst allowing Todd's Green to continue to retain the character of a small settlement. For these reasons, we respectfully ask the committee to look favourably on this application. It is a modest, sensible and sustainable proposal that is appropriate in the green belt. It respects the locality and makes a contribution to meeting local housing need. We respectfully ask members to support the officer's recommendation and grant approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Are there any points of clarification for Kevin from the members? Councillor Peace.
Could you give a reason why you can't achieve a positive biodiversity net gain on the site like you did with the application for 2 properties?
It is possible to push further back into the site, but what we've actually done, and some members here tonight have highlighted, and the parish council have highlighted, that the trees that are creating the BNG in the first application obscured the view that the parish desire. So for that reason, we've tried to appease the parish and their concerns to then do an off-site BNG to then further allow the views that would have been obscured by the tree planting with the first application and the BNG.
Councillor Winstanley. Dave.
But the houses that are there now block the view, do they not?
We were referring to the objection that the parish council made in this application, that there's a loss of view, but we are doing an off-site BNG, so there'll be no trees. There would have been a screen if the 2 houses were there across the back of their gardens, a continuous screen from one side to the other. You wouldn't have had any open countryside view through there, and the width of that road is exactly the same going through.
So the trees that were blocking the view are now being replaced by 2 homes that are blocking the view.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Peace. Louise.
Right, I appreciate before an officer says anything that we have to look at what's before us. But is there no reason why you couldn't use some additional land behind the site in the same way as the previous application to secure BNG?
Sorry, could you just say that again, please?
In the previous application, there was land behind the 2 properties that was sort of left as fallow and BNG. And I know you've put the 2 new properties there now. Why not use some of the additional land that's in your ownership to do the same with these 4?
Yeah, no problem. I'm just going to get my colleague to answer that.
I'm sorry, we can't because I'm so sorry, but you're not a registered speaker, so yeah. But the agent, yeah, Kevin, you're more than help.
Okay, yeah, okay. So we're doing an offsite, but we're not using all of the offsite for the calculation. So there will be some on-site BNG, but in a simple answer, there isn't actually a reason. We thought we were doing it to stop the screening. The views from the parish council were that the roadway wouldn't enjoy the view. That roadway is still there, which one of the members this evening has said we're replacing the screening with 2 homes, which is correct. But there will be a better view with the 4 homes through the road than with the 2 homes. That is factually correct. There would be no screening across there. But there isn't actually a reason why we're going to keep it off-site. It will be partially on-site and partially off-site, but it was primarily to keep the tall trees across the back of the site, so there was still partial views through the access road.
Thanks, Kevin. Do we have any further points of clarification from the agent? Councillor Fernandez.
Yes, I want the original plans, the houses were closer to the road, more in line with the existing buildings in the village. Could you explain why they're a bit further back now and they seem to have they're further away than they were? They're not in line with the other buildings, are they?
Quite simply due to the width of the access road and the turning circles and the hammerhead required for the emergency vehicles and the refuge trucks. Makes it very tricky to have all of that width in there. But with the urban drawing that we did submit, I know one of the members did say that it is linear development, but actually if you look at that drawing, you will actually see that it actually is not the case at all. There is mostly dual development, at least through most of Todd's Green, especially the new development further back and across the road as well. So if you look at that urban drawing, I think I can bring it back up again. There isn't much left of the linear development at all.
See.
Is it possible to bring that? I think it would be helpful.
There. So you can see now the new development to the south there is 5 or 6 houses deep, and to the north of our proposed site, it doesn't look very linear there at all either. And dead opposite, it doesn't look very linear.
Okay, Councillor Winstanley. Thank you.
The buildings that create the depth are predominantly outbuildings and garages. They're not necessarily homes. So yeah, you're right in terms of there is built form, but they're not homes. The nature of the village is linear. It's just they're large homes that have got outbuildings behind them.
Partially, yeah. Partially there is, but
Majority of
sorry.
Which is in Stevenage.
If we can,
in Stevenage. Yeah, that's in.
sorry,
in
councillors,
Stevenage.
if we can,
Sorry.
We'll finish points of clarification to the agent, and we will move on to a general debate earlier. Not that I'm diffusing your comments. Right. So if we have no other questions to the applicant's agent, I will ask the officer to respond to any issues raised. Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 things, if it helps. I've just done a quick PDF measure, and plot 1 of the previous scheme was 12 meters back from the red line boundary, let's call it. and plot 1 for this scheme is now 15.6 meters back, so it's about 3.6 meters further back. And the other point about BNG and offsite, onsite, the fact of the matter is BNG will be delivered. It's mandatory whether it's on-site or off-site, so that benefit is still effectively the same either way. So I think that's all I've got to add, but I can answer more questions if need be, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Do members have any further questions for the planning officer? No? Okay. So we'll move towards a debate. The officer's recommendation is to grant permission. Unless members are minded to propose a different recommendation on this item along with the material planning reasons, I shall be proposing that we grant permission. Therefore, I propose that we grant planning permission subject to the conditions set out in the report, the receipt of an IACPC and no objection from North Harts ecologist, and the agreement to extension of statutory determination date to allow for the IACPC to be completed. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Fernandez.
Happy to second and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Debate. Councillor Stanley, I think you were.
So last time we heard so much about infilling, the linear nature of the hamlet, the strip to maintain the views and to access the BNG area. Well, the BNG area is gone. The on-site BNG is gone. The strip has gone. The views have gone. It was deemed infilling. Then 2 homes continuing the built form of the village makes sense. 4 doesn't. But I appreciate a different planning instrument is in play. I do appreciate that. It deviates from the linear form. So in terms of planning law, I'm sure it's acceptable. I don't know if I don't know. I mean, previously the applicant said that they were, or the applicant's agent rather, they were not extending the built form into the wider countryside. They absolutely are now. I wasn't overly happy supporting it last time, and I don't think I can support it this time. The justifications for it last time have all gone, in my opinion. Thank you.
Councillor Ruth Brown.
So following on from that, I have serious issues with this grey belt definition. I have read in detail the explanation from the planning officer, and I agree that technically it can be classed as grey belts, but I don't think it's in the spirit of what is intended. So one of the purposes is to preserve the setting and special character of historic towns. It just says Todd's Green is not a town. Well, technically no, but what about preserving the special character of a hamlet or a village? It says it's to prevent neighbouring towns merging into one another. I agree that this is not the case here because that's infilling. It talks about to assist in safeguarding the countryside from encroachment. And I absolutely concur with Councillor Winstanley that this is encroachment into countryside. Absolutely is. And it's supposed to assist in urban regeneration by encouraging the recycling of derelict and other urban land. This is not previously developed land. This is a paddock. It's not derelict. So, and there's an unmet need. We know all about that, and the fact that we don't have a 5-year land supply, which really scuppers us on so many applications. But I really can't support this because I think it should have been assessed against Greenbelt, because I think actually, although it might be technically Greybelt, it's in spirit is actually still Greenbelt. Thank you.
Councillor Val.
Thank you. I share the disquiet, I think, that many of the councillors have about the change in the application. It is a new application. in my mind, I still see 9 houses, and I wouldn't like to be sat here in a year's time in front of an application where it suddenly becomes 9 houses. But I think when I look at it, in fact, it actually is within the planning law. It is actually in the grey belt law. I don't think that it is something as a resident of Todds Green I would want to be supporting. But I think I will be voting for this because actually there's no reason to vote against it, unfortunately. Thank you.
Councillor Prescott. Martin.
I'm just going to get in before Councillor Mantle comes in with his normal, we must hold our noses and vote for this kind of speech. He's right. Under planning law, I can't see any reason to refuse it, and I've said that already. I feel most uncomfortable with it because I would almost put money on the fact that we'll be looking at another application in 6 months' time for another 2 houses. And Councillor Winstanley is completely correct when he said that all the reasons for supporting the initial application have all gone. I feel very uncomfortable about it. I will support it because I don't think we really got much choice in the matter, but I just don't like it. I really don't like it.
I'm assuming that was a complimentary comment towards Councillor Martin.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, he has the experience that I don't have, and he speaks a lot of sense. But the point he makes is perfectly valid. We have occasions here where we just literally have to hold our noses and vote for things.
Are you indicating again, Councillor Bryant?
Yes, maybe I'm being a bit thin-skinned on Councillor Mantle's behalf, but I did think that was an unfair comment. But I think you may have just redeemed yourself in my eyes, but maybe not in Councillor Mantle's.
I misspoke. It wasn't intended in any way disrespectfully.
So I'll let him, if Emma doesn't mind, I'm going to bring Councillor Mantle in next.
Background to make a completely different point. I have a congenital dislike of backland development. And to me, this is a classic piece of backland development, which is just inappropriate in this hamlet, and I cannot support it.
Councillor Fernandez.
I share a lot of the reservations that my colleagues have spoken about this evening, but we cannot demonstrate a 5-year supply of housing. And it is a high quality development that they look very well designed. The buildings at the back are of a lower height. It is a shame that there will not be any views of the open countryside, which the original scheme did keep. But I think in the light of the tilted balance that I have to support this.
Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, I pretty much share that view. I do find this somewhat distasteful, but here we are, and the real problem is, of course, the whole grey belt concept that has been thrust upon us recently and leaves us in, not necessarily in a state of insecurity about what is actually meant and what the purpose of the green belt is or should be, and the problem is with this that if we're looking at policy alone, which of course we have to, then it's very hard to argue against the application because the NPPF at paragraph 155 says what it says. We've got to be mindful of the tilted balance, as has been mentioned before, and whether this really the harms of this outweigh the benefits of having those homes there is a very debatable point, and I think that it wouldn't hold up in an appeal, and it doesn't hold up here, I'm afraid, because I don't particularly condone the nature of the application on a personal note, but policy-wise, I think we've got to go with it.
Thanks, Tom. Councillor Billing. Claire.
Yeah, I just think that I kind of support what Councillor Winstanley has been saying about the reasons why it was refused last time, but I can't think of a legal reason to refuse it, so I'm going to have to support it reluctantly.
Okay. Well, while other people are considering, I shall put in my Haypuntworth. I certainly agree with some of the comments. I don't like the somebody said about not being linear application. It feels like a linear application to me. We have two houses and then another two houses, and we can speculate about the rest, but that's not a material consideration, I'm afraid. I think if it wasn't, even without the tilted balance, I would say to me it'd be finely balanced between detriments versus the benefits. With a tilted balance, I think it's quite clear. I'm always happy to listen to Councillor Brown with her experience and wisdom. However, I think we can say that it's technically grey belt, but in spirit it's green belt. And I think from a rhetorical position, that's a perfectly, reasonable statement, I guess. But we're dealing with planning law here. And like any other form of law, we may think it's an arse, but it's still the law. And I just think, unfortunately, we are here to deal with the technicality of the law. We're not here to deal with the spirit of the law. And that may be frustrating for all of us on many, many occasions. But I think it is quite clear. And I concur with colleagues who say, whilst I might have reservations, I cannot see that the reservations outweigh the benefit. Councillor Peace.
This is difficult, this one. I do think it probably could be considered as grey belt, and grey belt is planning law and we must abide by it even if we don't like it, which I don't. So that brings me to, are there any other reasons why we could refuse it? And we've had mentioned that it's not completely linear in the village, but that is debatable. We've had backland mentioned. I don't believe the ecologist actually refused the application, so much as I've got reservations about the lack of BNG, and I'm not keen on that either. I think I am probably coming down on the side of, indeed, I will say it, having to hold my nose and grant. I really wish that our design code SPD that some of us heard about last night was in place for this. And I look forward to it being in place in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Peace. Nazneen.
Just a quick one. Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of the BNG, Alex already touched on it when he clarified the point, but legally, developers can deliver on-site or a mixture of on-site and off-site by purchasing biodiversity units. So I just wanted to give that clarification again.
Thanks, Nazneen. Okay, if we have no further debate, we will move to a vote. The officer's recommendation to grant permission, that's been moved and seconded. So can I see those? We vote on whether to accept those. I never know.
That motion is carried, Chair.
Thanks, Robbie. Okay, we have one other item on the agenda, item 9, planning appeals. Sean Greaves to present. Sean.
Thank you, Chair. We have one appeal decision to report, and that appeal was dismissed. And this relates to proposed UPVC windows to a listed cottage. That's the second appeal dismissed for this type of development at this site. Our approach and that of the planning inspector has been consistent throughout. There's also some new appeals to report. And most notable is the appeal against the refusal of planning permission for 280 houses at Barkway Road, Royston. That will be in the form of a public inquiry, and the public inquiry will commence on the 12th of May and will last for 6 days. I believe it probably will take 6 days. The Conservatives of Fairfield Heath have registered as a Rule 6 party. The Town Council have not registered as a Rule 6 party. and have indicated that they don't intend to do so. So, but when you get a Rule 6 party, you sometimes get another barrister and that will normally make such public inquiries a little bit longer. In addition, the appellant is challenging our 5-year housing land supply, and that will be a matter for consideration at the public inquiry. Their submission at this point is that the council have just 1.9 years supply of housing and not 2.6, as our council says. So officers may need to give evidence on that, and officers can, because that doesn't relate to the reasons for refusal. We've appointed a planning consultant. I've not been involved in that procurement, but we've appointed a planning consultant, and I believe we're about to appoint a highways consultant. A highways consultant has given a fee proposal, and I believe we're going to appoint a highways consultant. I've been involved in instructing counsel, and counsel will be appointed, and the barrister is Nina Pindham of Cornerstone Chambers. And Nina will be acting as our advocate at the public inquiry. Notwithstanding that we have been able to appoint consultants to represent the council in justifying the reasons for refusal, those members who may well have voted against the officer recommendation, I would strongly suggest that they attend the public inquiry and set out their views to the inspector at the inquiry, so that the inspector is fully informed as to the concerns that members had with regards to this scheme. So, unless you've got any further questions, Councillor Brown.
Have the town council registered as an interested party?
They will be. They don't have to register as an interested party. They are an interested party. They were a statutory consultee for the application. They can make further written submissions, and they can attend the public inquiry and speak at the public inquiry.
Okay.
But they will not be formal Rule 6 parties at the inquiry. In other words, they won't be involved and be consulted and receive all the documentation that a Rule 6 party would receive in the public inquiry.
Right, so they can make written reps or they can come and speak.
And they can do both.
Okay. What about members? You said you recommend that members attend. Do we
Yes.
have to register, or how do we go about doing
No,
that?
you don't have to register. You can just turn up and speak. It's a public event. It's
Okay.
open to anybody to attend, and it's open to anybody to speak. At the beginning of the process, my advice is to attend the first day if you can. Or if you intend to speak, but you can't attend the first day, write to the case officer at PINS, informing that you would like to attend and that you would like to speak at the inquiry. And the timetable will be issued, giving an indication of when that would be over
Okay.
the 6-day period. If there's particular dates you cannot make, then inform the case officer those dates you can't make. And the inspectors normally try and weave these things in so that everybody who wishes to speak is able to do so.
Okay. And is it going to be held here?
Yes, in this room.
Do we know who the inspector is?
I believe we do, but
Well, you're not allowed to tell us. Okay.
No, I
fine.
can tell you.
Oh, right.
I just can't.
You don't know the name. All right.
Sorry. I can email you the details
Okay.
if you like.
Fine.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you very much.
But that will be on our website as to who the inspector is. If you just bear with me, actually, I can find it out from an email that I received. Just bear with me.
Will we be cross-examined if we speak?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Will we be cross-examined if we speak?
Well, you're given the option, actually. You're given the option of not being cross-examined or cross-examined. The inspector will give greater weight to any evidence given if it's been subject to cross-examination. Having said that, from my experience, and I've attended quite a lot of these things, generally speaking, barristers often don't cross-examine non-expert witnesses at a public inquiry. Only if you say something that they take real umbrage at, would they perhaps cross-examine you.
I'm definitely a non-expert, Nigel.
The inspector appointed is Inspector Rekha Sabu, that's REKHA, Sabu, SABU, and crikey, BA Ons, MA, B Arch, DIP TP, PG DIP, REBA, ARB. So this, we have an architect. Yeah.
Interesting.
And as I say, 6 sitting days starting at the 12th of May. Sometimes inspectors are replaced because something comes up and they do something else. But as things currently stand, the inspector allocated this inquiry is Reka Sabu. So unless there's any further questions you have.
Councillor Prescott. Martin.
Thank you. I was in the somewhat curious position of being a member of the original committee that would have that advocated refusal, and then I couldn't attend the second committee meeting where the decision was actually taken. So I would very much like to attend, and I would very much like the opportunity to speak. I don't know how relevant it is, but myself and several other councillors were also the subject of code of conduct complaints, which the legal officer, after a lengthy discussion over a Zoom call, determined was a frivolous, certainly in my case, was a frivolous instance of a complaint. I don't know how relevant it is to it, but I think it goes to the character of the applicant and the motives of the applicant to win the battle under all circumstances. Notwithstanding any of that, having walked the site with you, Sean, and your officers, it was absolutely clear, in my opinion, my first opinion, that the site was unsuitable, and I'd be more than happy to be cross-examined and tortured, if necessary, to make my point.
Thank you, Martin. I think you just practiced your speech for the inquiry. Any other questions for Sean? No. In which case, I shall close the meeting. Oh, sorry. The information, that was it. The report was for information only. No vote is required, and we'll close the meeting. And our next meeting is on Thursday, the 12th of March. It does, doesn't it?